Hi again, folks. How you all doing? Here we have an old Hornby Dublo Deltic that was sent to me by a chap called Phil. He said that he got this new in 1962 and it's never been serviced. So let's turn on the power, see what happens. There she goes. So yeah, it's very stoppy-starty and limping a bit. I think the traction tyres are done. Let's get it into the shed and we'll see what's what. Come on, in you go. Okay then, a Hornby Dublo Deltic. I don't think I've worked on one of these. This is called Crapello. I thought it said something else for a minute there. In pretty good condition, considering this is 3 years older than me. It's probably better condition than I am. Right, let's get this opened up. That out. That'll then just come off. Nice and simple. So we've got drive shaft, 2 worm gears, and a bevel gear onto the motor, ring magnet. The commutator, the slots in the commutator look pretty gunged up. 4 traction tyres on this thing, but I think they're they're rotten, well rotten. Yeah, they're turning to mush. So we'll replace those. Phil's also asked me to look at the couplings. This one's correct. It's got 2 little lugs that stop it moving too much from side to side, whereas on here it doesn't. So we'll replace this one with the correct one. There's a little red mark on the magnet there. I'll bet you that's the north indicator. Where's my compass? Yep, so north is that way. I'm quite surprised that the sides of the bogies are plastic. We'll get this undone. Comes off. Right, okay, we've got work to do to the wiring. Right, let's just undo these. And then unplug that. Get that out the road. Undo that. Need to watch these, they can come springing out. Yeah, that spring's under quite a bit of tension. Is that brush going to come out? Nope. What about this spring? It's stuck. Loosen that off. Undo that. There's a little ball bearing in there. Undo these. Like so. So at least we know the magnet's marked. So we take it out. A ring magnet being a ring, it doesn't lose its power. So I can't get this out unless I release the gear. So there's little grub screws on the gear that hold it in place. I don't like undoing these if I can help it. They break very easily, but that one's loosened. There we go, that now comes out. There's that gear. Loosen the bearing at the back. Take it out. Should be a ball bearing in there as well, yep. And that should now lift out. So there'll be another ball bearing in there, yep. So these bits here are plastic. And they seem to be sort of plugged in. Do they just unclip like that? Yes, they do. See how rotten these traction tyres are. They're just mush. Brushes. There's one. Here's the other. So give that a scoosh with contact cleaner and out pops the bearing. Usually. There it is. That's a bigger one. Right, okay, so these little ball bearings we want to keep safe. These will go in the sonic cleaner. That's all those, the brushes and springs, and that. Might as well stick that in as well. Put these in here. You can maybe just see how clogged up the slots are between the poles of the commutator. That can hugely affect the running. We'll give it a good scoosh. Clean out the slots. Give it a wee rub with some teacup. There we go. We'll let that evaporate off and then we'll test it. Right, we'll scoosh through there. Make sure these are nice and clean. Get the manky brush onto the rest of it. Give this a scoosh over. I want to make sure these wheels are really clean before I fit the new traction tyres. Get rid of all the residue from the old ones. Alright, okay. We'll let all that evaporate off. We'll get the sonic cleaner on and we'll clean up the front bogie as well. It's not too bad, but the wheels need a bit of a clean. Right, okay. Well, I'll even clean my hands. But I'll get the sonic cleaner on, and then it'll be beer o'clock. So I'll probably come back to this tomorrow. Okay, so next day, all my bits and bobs have been in the sonic cleaner. They're all nice and clean. So we can start to get this back together. First of all, I'm going to test this armature. Use the continuity setting on the multimeter. We just touch the poles and see what happens. We should get continuity. That's reading 10, 10. Yeah, that's fine, and nothing between the commutator and the shaft. So the armature looks fine. So I think we'll get the little ball bearings back into these bearings. Get some grease. Just use moly grease for this. Spot in there. Spot in there. One of these ball bearings is bigger than the other. So that one goes in there. And that one goes in there. So smear of grease on them just to keep them in place. There's also the bearing in there. You can just see the ball bearing. We'll put some grease in that as well. Right, fit this drive shaft in. Set the bearing at that end. And we screw this in at that end. Now, I want to set this so there's just a tiny little bit of movement. Sometimes easier said than done to tighten the lock nut without turning the screw. I need to get myself a dedicated spanner for this. That's better. Now, to fit this, I'm going to put a wee bit of oil on there. Let me fit this gear. There we go. Right, how much play is in this drive shaft? Actually, that's not bad at all. I think we'll go with that. That was a wee bit of a fiddle, but got there. And we'll get a wee touch of gear oil on these gears. Right, okay, we'll get the magnet back in place along with this piece. So that wants to go that way round. And the little red mark on the magnet is there. So that wants to go that way. It'll sit in like that. It'll go on there like so. Then we want to pop this bearing in. Get it to engage with the armature. Right, we can make an adjustment to that later. We'll get some oil in the little felt oil reserve in there. Now fit the brushes. So that one's going to go in like so. You can see this spring's a bit bent and bulged in the middle, so it won't slide in and out of the tube. Fortunately, I've got spares of these, so I've got a replacement spring. I want to put the brush in first though. That's something I haven't done before. Fit the springs without fitting brushes. First time for everything though. Right, okay. Now we can get that out the road. I'll get this screwed back in. Oh, actually, I'll tell you what we'll do. Before we do that, we'll give this a wee blast in the remagnetizer. So pop that in like that. So the North Pole is facing that way. Get it as lined up as accurately as possible. I'll give it a wee blast. I don't think it'll make a huge difference because ring magnets don't really lose their power. Right, then we'll get this back in place. We'll plug that into the brush first. Come on, get it in. There we go. That'll go in there. That goes in there. Right, okay. I think I'm happy with that. So we'll get the new traction tyres on. Actually, I think we'll get some insulation on these wires here. Fire. Just gently run the little screwdriver around to get them on and make sure they're not twisted. There we go, traction tyres done. Let's get the get some oil in the axles, haven't done that. with a bit of a wobble. It's probably the traction tyres. We'll have a look at that later. Let's fix this coupling, which is the one that needs replaced. This one. Fortunately, where's my screwdriver? These couplings are not the ones that are riveted in, they're held in place with a screw and a nut. So we can just unscrew them. Much better idea than the rivets. There we go, there's the correct one. It's got little lugs either side. Right, okay. We will pop the body back on. So we'll need to give this a good run. And then we'll see if we can do anything about the wobble, but it's, I mean, I'm saying it's the traction tyres, it might not be, you know, it could be the wheels or the axles. Yeah, as I've said before with these old models, sometimes you have to just accept that they're not going to run as perfectly as you might want them to. You have to excuse them a wee wobble and a bit of noise. Yeah, the wobble could be quite bad though. I think we'll give it a wee test on the layout and see how bad it is. Okay, so we've got it in bits again. Yeah, the wobble was pretty bad. You know, a wee wobble, as I say, of an old model can excuse it, but when it becomes a serious shuggle, nah, I wanted to do something about it. Phil actually gave me a couple of traction tyres to go with this, these sort of yellowy transparent ones, and they're smaller and they stretch on, and I think they fit better rather than these third-party ones that you can buy. I think you can get hold of these, so I'm going to order some of these up. But the wobble seemed to be coming from this axle, so I've replaced the third-party traction tyres with these ones, and I think that's going to help it a bit. I think it'll still wobble, but I don't think it'll be shuggling. Let's just see. Yeah, I think it's always going to wobble unless I could replace that axle. I think that's a wee bit better. You know, there could be a slight buckle on one of the axles or whatever, so it's not wobbling up and down anymore. It's just a wee side-to-side wiggle, which, yeah, I'm probably never ever going to sort. The other issue it has is it's very slow and sluggish, and I think that's because the brush, there's too much tension on the brushes. You know, the brushes are pressing too hard against the commutator. So I've had this before with old Dublo motors, and what I've done is I've cut a bit off the spring. See, there's a good bit of spring pokes out there, so there's quite a lot of compression. So if we cut a piece of that spring, I think it'll help. I know it seems quite a drastic thing to do, but just taking about, oh, I don't know, about half a centimetre or something off the spring will reduce the tension. Snip that off. That'll now go in. You can see that's not sticking out anywhere near as far. So when we screw this in, it won't be pressing the brush as hard up against the commutator. The spring on this side isn't quite as bad because it's got further to travel. But this was a new spring that I put in, and you have to take into account the fact that this pushes in quite a bit, so we can still snip a bit off this spring as well. Snip a bit off that. There we go. Right, we'll see how that runs. Yeah, I think that's a lot better. Right, I think we'll go with that. There we go. Let's go and pull it out of the shed. Okay then, out she comes. So there we are, that's Phil's old Dublo Deltic running again. Yeah, I think this has been serviced or at least fiddled around with in the past, but as usual, the commutator was in need of a good clean. The brushes and springs looked newish to me, but one spring was bulging in the middle, making it stick, and both of them were a bit too long, as they usually are, resulting in too much pressure between the brushes and the commutator. Resulting in slow and rough running. Simple way to fix that is to trim the springs a wee bit, which relieves the excess pressure, and give everything a good clean up, some fresh grease and oil, some new traction tyres, and she runs okay now. Like many old models, it had a bit of a wobble, but in this case it was a bit too severe for me to accept. So I tried fitting some different traction tyres that Phil had sent me a couple of, and that seemed to help, but I can see that there's a slight wobble in that rear drive axle. The aftermarket traction tyres just exaggerated the problem, so I've managed to find a source of the softer translucent tyres that Phil sent me, so I'm going to order some of those up. As I always say with old Dublo or Wren models, they're anything but perfect runners and will have all sorts of idiosyncrasies and peculiarities, but you know, that's what makes them interesting in many ways. Anyway, always good to get one of these oldies running again. I shall get her packed up and sent back to Phil, and I'll catch you later, folks.